Port of Miami, Florida, March 19th, 2023. A routine inspection of a Panama-bound cargo ship reveals a suspicious compartment hidden beneath the engine coolant reservoir in the deepest part of the vessel, where only experienced marine engineers would venture during normal operations. Inside the concealed space, customs agents discover fragments of heavy-duty plastic wrap, industrial straps used to secure currency bricks during transportation, and chemical residue designed to erase scent trails that could alert drug detection dogs to the presence of cash that had been contaminated through handling in drug trafficking operations. Before we dive into this incredible story, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell. Leave a like if you're ready for a story that will change how you think about airline security, and comment below with your city so I know where my viewers are watching from around the world. The cargo manifest listed sealed crates of electrical components destined for industrial customers in Panama City, but the hidden compartment was supposed to contain $11.2 million in cartel cash that had been collected from drug distribution networks throughout Florida, Georgia, and South Carolina. The money was part of a sophisticated money laundering operation that used commercial shipping to transport drug profits from American cities back to cartel leadership in Central and South America, where the cash would be integrated into legitimate businesses and banking systems. Surveillance footage from the ship's limited security cameras identified the last person seen near the hidden compartment: Eli Navarro, a 45-year-old ship engine technician with 20 years of experience maintaining diesel systems on cargo vessels that transported goods between American ports and destinations throughout Latin America. By the time the ship completed its docking procedures and customs agents realized that millions of dollars in cartel money had been stolen, Elias had vanished without leaving any trace of his intended destination or escape plan. Elias Navarro was a United States citizen originally from Galveston, Texas, where he had grown up in a working-class family that depended on employment in the shipping industry that dominated the economic life of the Gulf Coast region. His father had worked as a longshoreman for 30 years, loading and unloading cargo ships that connected Texas ports to international markets, and Elias had learned early that maritime work provided steady employment for people willing to accept the physical demands and irregular schedules required by global shipping operations. After graduating from high school, Elias enlisted in the United States Navy, where he received specialized training as a diesel engineer responsible for maintaining the massive engines that powered aircraft carriers, destroyers, and support vessels throughout the world's oceans. His military service included deployments to the Mediterranean Sea, Persian Gulf, and Pacific Ocean, where he gained experience with sophisticated mechanical systems and learned to work independently in challenging conditions that required precise attention to detail and absolute reliability. Elias received an honorable discharge after 6 years of military service and immediately found civilian employment in the maritime shipping industry, where his Navy training and security clearance made him valuable to companies that needed experienced engineers capable of maintaining diesel engines, hydraulic systems, and other mechanical equipment that was essential for safe operation of cargo vessels. His transition from military to civilian maritime work was seamless, because the skills required were nearly identical, and the culture of discipline and professionalism was similar to what he had experienced during his Navy service. For 2 decades, Elias worked on cargo ships that transported everything from agricultural products to manufactured goods between American ports and destinations throughout Central America, South America, and the Caribbean. He was known among his colleagues as someone who preferred to work below deck in the engine rooms and mechanical spaces, where he could focus on technical challenges without the social interactions that occurred in other areas of the ship, where crew members gathered during off-duty hours. Elias was described by supervisors and coworkers as obsessive with maintenance and always fiddling with things no one else touched, spending hours checking systems that other engineers might inspect only when problems occurred. His attention to detail and willingness to work alone made him valuable for assignments that required discretion and reliability, particularly on ships that carried sensitive cargo or operated on routes where mechanical failures could create serious safety or security problems. His lifestyle reflected the nomadic nature of maritime work, living out of port motels and temporary accommodations rather than maintaining a permanent residence that would tie him to any specific location. Elias had no fixed address, no social media presence, and rarely used banking services, preferring to be paid in cash and maintaining minimal electronic records that could be tracked by government agencies or other organizations interested in monitoring his activities and movements. Elias had developed a reputation among maritime workers for never drinking alcohol, never gambling, and never speaking more than necessary to complete his assigned tasks. His social isolation was not unusual in an industry where many workers preferred solitary lifestyles that allowed them to focus on their technical responsibilities without the complications that came with maintaining relationships and community connections that could be disrupted by the demands of constant travel. Until his disappearance with $11.2 million in cartel cash, Elias had no criminal history beyond minor traffic violations and had never been connected to drug trafficking, money laundering, or other illegal activities that were common problems in the maritime shipping industry due to the difficulty of monitoring cargo and crew activities on vessels that operated in international waters where law enforcement jurisdiction was limited. The cargo ship where Elias worked belonged to a Panamanian shell company that had been flagged as high risk by Drug Enforcement Administration analysts who were monitoring shipping companies suspected of facilitating drug trafficking and money laundering operations. The use of Panamanian registration was common among companies that wanted to avoid the regulatory oversight and taxation requirements imposed by countries with more stringent maritime laws. But it also provided cover for criminal organizations that needed to move illegal cargo without attracting attention from law enforcement agencies. Undercover intelligence operations conducted by federal agents over several years had revealed that United States cash generated by cartel drug sales was being smuggled back to South America inside engine housing compartments and other mechanical spaces that were shielded from routine customs inspections. Engine rooms provided ideal hiding places for illegal cargo because they were noisy, mechanically complex, subject to minimal surveillance, and accessible only to senior technicians who had the specialized knowledge required to work safely around high-pressure systems and dangerous machinery. Elias had access to detailed engineering blueprints that showed the internal structure of the ship's mechanical systems, maintenance logs that documented routine inspection schedules, and technical knowledge that allowed him to identify compartments and spaces that customs inspectors would skip during routine examinations of cargo vessels. His position as a senior engine technician gave him unsupervised access to areas of the ship where illegal cargo could be hidden and retrieved without being observed by other crew members or security personnel. The theft occurred during a 2-day period before the ship was scheduled to dock in Miami, when Elias allegedly used his knowledge of security camera blind spots to access the hidden compartment in the lower deck engine room where the cartel cash was stored. Engine maintenance logs showed that Elias had reported a coolant valve malfunction that required immediate attention to prevent potential engine damage that could delay the ship's departure and cause expensive schedule disruptions. The reported malfunction provided Elias with a legitimate reason to work alone in the engine room during hours when other crew members were sleeping or engaged in duties that kept them away from the mechanical spaces where the money was hidden. The coolant system problem also justified delaying the routine inspection that was supposed to occur before the ship reached port, giving Elias additional time to complete the theft without being interrupted by other personnel. During the 12-hour delay caused by the reported coolant problem, federal investigators believe that Elias extracted the $11.2 million in cartel cash from its hiding place and transferred the money to a private cargo crate that he had labeled as spare diesel injectors to avoid attracting attention from crew members who might question unusual activities in the engine room. The crate was small enough to be handled by one person, but large enough to contain millions of dollars in bundled currency that had been vacuum sealed for protection during maritime transportation. Port records showed that the crate containing the stolen money was manually lowered onto the dock using a forklift operated by Elias, who was listed as the authorized handler for mechanical spare parts that were routinely removed from ships for maintenance or replacement purposes. The procedure was so routine that dock workers and security personnel paid no attention to Elias as he transferred the crate to a temporary storage area where it could be retrieved later without attracting suspicion. Elias clocked out of his shift at 6:03 a.m. on March 19th, following normal procedures for crew members who had completed their assigned duties and were preparing to leave the ship before its departure for Panama. Port security cameras recorded him walking through the terminal building toward the parking area where crew members typically retrieved personal vehicles or arranged transportation to hotels and other accommodations. After 6:23 a.m., there was no surveillance footage of Elias anywhere in the port facility, but security records showed that a rental van registered under a false name exited the port complex 20 minutes later. The van had been rented using forged identification documents that could not be traced to Elias or any other individual through normal law enforcement databases, suggesting that the theft had been planned well in advance and that Elias had prepared false documentation to support his escape. The rental van was discovered abandoned at a marina approximately 7 miles from the port, where it had been left in a parking area used by recreational boaters and fishing enthusiasts who kept small vessels for weekend activities. The van contained no fingerprints, DNA evidence, or other forensic traces that could provide information about who had been driving it or where they might have gone after abandoning the vehicle. Marina records confirmed that a solo operator in a small dinghy had departed that morning heading toward the Florida Keys, following routes commonly used by recreational boaters, traveling between mainland Florida and the chain of islands that extended toward Key West. The harbor master who had observed the departure described the boat operator as matching Elias's height and build, but the distance and poor lighting conditions made positive identification impossible. The dinghy was never seen again, despite extensive searches by the Coast Guard, Florida Marine Patrol, and local law enforcement agencies that deployed aircraft, patrol boats, and underwater recovery teams to search areas where the vessel might have run out of fuel or been abandoned. The Florida Keys provided thousands of small islands, mangrove swamps, and hidden waterways where someone could hide a boat or transfer to another vessel without being detected by search teams. The Federal Bureau of Investigation launched a comprehensive manhunt that included agents and resources from field offices throughout Florida and the Gulf Coast region, using techniques developed for capturing international fugitives and domestic terrorists who had attempted to disappear after committing serious crimes. The investigation included financial transaction monitoring, communications intercepts, surveillance of locations where Elias might seek assistance, and cooperation with international law enforcement agencies that could provide assistance if he had fled to foreign countries. Federal agents intercepted communications between cartel middlemen that revealed Elias had not been part of the original money transportation plan, and that his theft had surprised criminal organizations who had believed their security procedures were sufficient to prevent inside theft by crew members. The intercepted conversations indicated that cartel leadership was conducting their own investigation to determine how their operation had been compromised and who was responsible for the loss of $11.2 million. A Miami-based cartel broker who had been involved in arranging the money transportation was found executed 10 days after the theft, shot multiple times, and left in a location where his body would be discovered quickly as a warning to other associates who might be tempted to steal from the organization. The murder demonstrated that the cartel was taking the theft seriously and was willing to use violence against anyone who might have been involved in the loss of their money. Federal agents believed that regardless of which theory was correct, Elias had demonstrated knowledge and capabilities that suggested the theft was not his first involvement in criminal activities. A law enforcement official familiar with the investigation stated that if he's alive, he knew exactly how to vanish. That money wasn't his first job, just his biggest. The theft had serious consequences for cartel operations beyond the immediate financial loss because it demonstrated that their money transportation methods were vulnerable to inside theft by people who had access to their operations and understood their security procedures. The incident forced criminal organizations to review and upgrade their transportation security, change personnel assignments, and implement additional monitoring procedures that increased their operational costs and complexity. Elias Navarro remains a wanted fugitive with outstanding federal warrants for theft, money laundering, and conspiracy charges that could result in decades of imprisonment if he is captured and convicted. The FBI continues to offer substantial rewards for information leading to his arrest, but no credible sightings or intelligence about his location have been reported by law enforcement agencies or criminal informants.